Hi, Salicia. Hi, Eileen. Thanks for joining me this morning. And we're just coming together to talk a little bit about the upcoming conference in April that's going to be on IFS and eating disorders. But before we do that, I thought maybe each of you could introduce yourselves and tell me a little bit about what you're doing professionally. I know you're coming from two different states, and maybe just why don't we start there? Salicia, you want to go?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Salicia Mazero. I am an eating disorder therapist and our therapist in St. Louis, Missouri. So I have my own group practice. It's called Creating Your Journey, and we are located in Kirkwood. So I primarily treat adolescents and young adults with eating disorders. And then we have two other therapists at Creating Your Journey that also treats mainly eating disorders. So that's kind
Great.
of about my private practice. The other thing that we have going on that's kind of new to St. Louis is we just created our own nonprofit organization educating professionals with eating disorders or educating professionals on eating disorders. And that is called Networked. So it's Network with a capital ED. And Networked is going to be putting on different CE events throughout the year in the St. Louis area. And then we're going to be also doing a one-day conference this year. So very excited about that.
Great.
Um,
Do you know
and
when the conference is going to be? Have you scheduled that yet?
it is September, and I'll get you the exact date for
Great.
that.
Good. That's exciting. And are you focusing mainly in the St. Louis area, or are you doing like all of Missouri?
So right now, because we're just starting off, it's just the St. Louis region is where we're having the events. But obviously, we welcome anyone to come from throughout the state. And then for the presentations, we'll be bringing in people from all over. So
Great.
our first talk will actually be on March 1st, and that's by Scott Mosman. So Dr.
Yeah.
Mosman is out of Laureate Hospital.
Yeah.
So he's flying in to actually do a presentation on neurobiology and eating disorders.
Oh, that's great. That's exciting.
Very excited. Yes. Yes.
Great. And Eileen, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Eileen Misluk-Gervase. I am an associate faculty member at Herron School of Art and Design with Indiana University in Indianapolis. Um, I came to the world of eating disorders close to 15, if not more, years ago, and really just became interested primarily in the ways that art therapy works so well within this population. I had an opportunity to move into academia and was really excited to be able to now start to dive into some of that research. So my clinical research is really focused on anorexia, specifically in the malnourished brain and the impact of art therapy and creative practices on the healing of the areas of the brain that tend to be compromised as a result of malnourishment. So I've published a couple things on that. And I've recently shifted into thinking about the parts of the brain that are really involved in body image and how we create body image, from the parts that are engaged in food, just food seeking and smelling and looking at images, to how that comes into creating a whole sense of our body and a schema. So I just finished a book on treatment approaches for body image in art therapy. So I'm I work with a lot of clinicians across the board, and they have a ton of different folks they work with. And so I've really been thinking about this concept of body image as wellness, and how across clinical populations we have to start talking about body image. I think as eating disorder therapists, we just do it,
Yeah.
and we naturally do it, and we think other people are doing it, and they're not. So I became really interested, and that's how I met Salicia. I was like, hey, you want to meet me and talk to me? And she did, and now we're friends. And so this book is really sectioned into kind of three things. We've got an eating disorder chapter, or eating disorder section, that's got about 4 chapters in it. We have a trauma section looking at the impact of trauma on body image in adolescents, trauma on body image of individuals who have been sex trafficked, domestic violence, LGBTQ, military. And then we also have a section on medical and the impacts of medical treatments in relation to body image. So I'm excited. It's at the publisher. It should be done by the end of 2024. But really looking at taking, I think, what we know in the world of eating disorders, specifically on body image, and how do we begin to bring this conversation across to other clinical groups.
That's
That's
amazing.
what I'm doing.
That's amazing. And in your work and your research, are you looking at the neurobiology? Like, are you doing brain scans and seeing what happens when people are smelling food, or like when they get anxious around food? Are you looking at all of that?
So I go on the pulling of the literature end of it. So I don't have to go into labs and do all that really hard, super challenging getting the cases. I go ahead and then look at all the published literature on neuroscience and the published literature that we have that's really emerging out of art therapy on what do we know is happening in the brain when we're looking at images or even when we're asked to think creatively. So yes, my work is really pulling together all of those other researchers that are doing that trial work, which it's fun for me because I get to read and I love to read. So
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that book. That's amazing. So that's how the two of you got together to think about doing a talk at this conference. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just coincidental because we became Zoom friends over the pandemic. We've never met in person. And I was just like, I have an art therapist in Indiana that you would love. So my background is more in IFS and the overlaps of IFS in eating disorders. And I was just thinking of how do I pull in another art therapist to kind of help present on this topic of positive body image, because a lot of times I go to conferences or I'll go to talks and it focuses so heavily on negative body image, and we know that when we treat eating disorders, body image is the piece that is the elephant in the room that we kind of leave till the end and we say, let's do refeeding, let's focus on this. But they hate their body the entire time. And, it's such a huge reason why clients will relapse is because of the intolerance of their body. Or where their body is. So I found it fascinating when we started talking and Elaine was like, I actually spend all of my research doing positive body image and looking at it from another angle. And I was like, well, this is fascinating. I don't think I've ever been to a positive body image talk. It's more of how to explore the negative body image. So I thought that was really interesting. And then pulling in my own IFS background. So in our presentation, we're going to be covering kind of merging our two worlds and talking more about IFS with positive body image.
That's amazing. That's great. I don't have any other questions. I'm just super excited that you guys are going to be a part of this. And the second day of the training is going to be much more of this experiential work of looking at body image and eating disorders and somatics and eating disorders. So I think it's going to be a really beautiful lineup for that. So I just want to thank you guys again for jumping on and being a part of the conference. I look forward to seeing you in April.
Yeah, and if you guys attend our talk, we will actually be doing an art experiential. Even if you're going to be at home joining us virtually, we will have art materials that you need to have access to before our presentation. And then if you're joining us in person, we plan on making some art together and using IFS with it.
It's going to be great. Thank you both so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right.